And I just realized if I can just get out of this credit card debt, I can take just those interest payments and take that money and move it towards organizations that I care about, charities I care about, give to people around me who are in tough situations, like any of these things that I'm so much interested in doing, and it doesn't affect my standard of living at all.
Well, let's face it. It's difficult to have a conversation right now and not talk about the price of everything. If there was ever a time to be concerned about your money and where it's going and what it's up to, I think this is it. And, a lot of people are struggling right now. And when that occurs, it can put a strain on a marriage and relationships around you. So I think it's important to talk and learn from people who are specializing in this type of help. And with that in mind, welcome to the podcast today, Bob Lotich. Bob is a financial coach. He has a new book out, Simple Money, Rich Life, True Financial Freedom, Design a Life of Eternal Impact. This book was the operating manual for Bob and his wife, Linda, that they used to wipe out their debt. And I'm going to add to that. And I'm sure it helped them to begin to build that legacy that we all want for ourselves. So Bob, welcome to the True Man Podcast.
Thank you, Mike. I am glad to be here. Excited to chat.
Yeah. So, like everybody, we got a story. We didn't always start where we are today. So what was, tell us about yourself and that point where you and your wife go, well, this sucks. We kind of have to do something about this. Like, what happened there?
Yeah. So for me, this is actually before I met my wife, but I found myself broken down about 1,000 miles away from home, right next to a minor league ballpark. As all these cars are driving by, everybody's staring at me, and finding myself, like, at that point, I had like $7 to my name total. And I had just picked up my paycheck, and I was trying to take it to the bank to cash it to pay my rent that was due that day. And if I didn't get it there, it was going to be a $50 late fee tacked on. And I didn't have the $50 because my paycheck was so small. And it was just that moment where I realized that, because if you would asked me a day before, I would have said, yeah, I'm pretty good with money. Like, I feel like I got this down,
That's a man thing.
Yeah, definitely. I had all this pride. And the truth is that I didn't know how much of a mess I was until all the house of cards just kind of came tumbling down. And so that was my moment where I just I remember grabbing the steering wheel, like tears running down my face. And I'm like, I have no idea what to do. Like, God, if you have a better plan, like, I'm all ears, because what I've been doing just hasn't been working. And so that was like kind of where it all kicked off for me, where my journey from complete mess to hopefully now in a little bit better position started.
Did you at least get to see the baseball game?
Did not. I was in a mad rush, but
well, that makes that story even worse.
I know.
You should at least take in a baseball game if you're in that position.
Yeah.
Bob, that is a difficult position to find yourself in. And unfortunately, as I've been talking to people in this current climate we find ourselves in, I'm hearing more stories, and they're horrific. Some of them. Yeah. And, I start with this. I mean, you've been there, done that. How does one, when they're at their lowest of low, begin to crawl out of that mess?
Yeah. I mean, as a Christian, I feel like it has to start with turning to God. Like, that's where it was for me. And this is obvious. I think anybody listening is like, well, yeah, of course, but what are the real things, And I think it's just so often that we overlook the significance of that and how big of a deal that is, and how when we do ask God for help, he begins to send the answers. And maybe it's not that moment. Maybe it's the next week, whatever, but things begin to change. And so that's what happened for me. Like, that was the first step for me, was crying out to God for wisdom. And as I asked for wisdom, in James, it says that God's going to provide it when we ask for wisdom. And he's not going to, be angry at us for asking. He knows that we need it. And so for me, asking, that was the first thing. And then I began, and this is his idea, but like, it's been there all along. I began diving into the Bible to see what it said about money. And I found out, whoa, it actually talks about money, and talks a lot about money.
Yeah.
And then I began reading every book I could get my hands on, and reading every magazine I could get my hands on, and just began learning and absorbing as much as I could to how to, just get out of the mess that I was in and put myself on a more solid foundation. What are the people who are good with money? What are the things that they are doing? What are the habits that they have in their lives that have, moved them forward down the line? I just heard the stat the other day. I think it is 70% of millionaires in the U.S. Were not. It wasn't generational wealth. Like they created it themselves or whatever, some variation of that, and that's super encouraging and inspiring, because I think so many people think that, most wealthy people were just born that way, born into wealthy families or something like that. But the reality is that we can change, we can grow, we can improve our financial life. And so it's just a matter of, are we going to do the work to learn a little bit and do the work to make some changes,
Well, you bring up an interesting statement. Are we willing to do the work? And I think what's interesting about that is, I'm probably leading with the answer. I mean, where is it that people fail to even get started on this? I probably just answered that by not doing the work, to some degree.
Well, one of the things is there more
to
of
the
a question? You mirror off that? Yeah. So one of the things I shared this chart, and I wish I could show this, but I share this chart in one of the later chapters in the book about what progress, particularly what financial progress looks like. Because I think so many people, when they're setting off on the journey, it's like, all right, I got a whole bunch of debt I want to get paid off, or whatever. I want to be able to save to get my kid to college, or whatever the thing might be. I think so many of us tend to think of progress as like this, linear path, where it's just like a 45-degree angle up or something like that. But the truth is that when you start out on a journey like this, and it's like this when you start a business, it's like this with a lot of different things, it doesn't go linear, and it's this up and down thing. And a lot of times at the beginning, it feels like you're putting in a lot more work and not getting much result for it. But there's this point and it's always different. It's gonna be different for everybody. There's this point that I call the tipping point, where all of a sudden you cross over that linear line, and now it's the opposite, where you're putting in less work and you're getting more results. And this is what so many people don't stick with long enough to get to see that point. And that's really, really exciting. For us, I think it was probably 3 or 4 years into our journey of really taking our finances seriously and trying to move forward. But those first 3 or 4 years were hard, because I felt like we were doing stuff and it didn't feel like much was changing. It's like we're saving money to pay down debt, and it feels like there's barely any there, and we're making sacrifices. And it's like, is this really worth it? Is this really going to be worth it? But a few years in, it was 3 or 4 years, all of a sudden we're doing this, and it's like all the wind is at our back. And now it's like our investments are like moving forward and growing. And it's like work is happening without us doing it. And that is a really exciting and fun point to get to. But it's just a matter of staying the course until you get there.
Yeah, it's interesting. As you were explaining that, I was thinking about walking up a staircase, because a lot of people, and this, when you become an entrepreneur, and listen, on social media, you can paint whatever kind of picture you want, right? You can make it all sunshine and roses. But the reality is, there are many days when I take 2 steps up the staircase and think, wow, I'm going someplace. And then, well, whoa, got to go back down again. And then, and that's the way it is. That's called life. And it's the same way with money. I think when you're trying to save and earn, and, I always think about the magic of compounding. Now, we live in a fast food society. So, a lot of people, they don't get that, because they think, well, I put a quarter in today and shouldn't there be $2 there tomorrow? It just doesn't work that way. Is that something that you talk about with folks, that whole magic of compounding thing?
Yeah, no, really interesting fact. I don't have the numbers exactly in front of me, but I believe it is 95%, might even be 97% of Warren Buffett's wealth was created after his 65th birthday. And this is so amazing to think about, but it's because of the power of compounding. because we just think it's just, again, been this linear thing for Warren Buffett, who, whatever, I don't know, he's $100 billion net worth or something right now. I'm not really sure what,
It's
but
a lot.
when you think about that like age 65, he might have only been like $3 or $5 billion net worth. And then now it's 100, whereas it took him up to age 65 to get to that point, so it's so easy to miss that. But like all with compounding, all of the stuff is on the back end. Like it's the beginning part where it feels like you're not making any progress, where it's like there's not much there. But that's why it's so important just to stick with it. Like it does work. It does work. It does work, but you just got to stick with it.
Well, it does. And I got to tell you, my wife and I, very fortunate. Our son now 19, our daughter is getting ready to be a senior in high school. And just prior, the minute literally we found out we were pregnant, we had a financial advisor and he said, "Hey, we need to start a college plan immediately." And we did. And end result of that is, and I don't know that I've ever done anything in my life where I looked at the compounding factor of it in the way that I did with their college. And so here's something that we can point to and go, okay, we started this, they weren't even born, and we start funding it. And heck, we stopped funding it several years ago between those two, and it continues to grow. Now we're at a point where, fun time for us. We got to, crack into one last year and, go through that process. But just the magic of compounding quite literally is what built that. And so I think that that's a very tangible tool that people need to know about and they need to understand because it's real.
Yeah. I mean, and this is one of those things that the wealthy all understand. It's like you want your money to work for you so that it's not just you trading in hours to make dollars, but you actually have your money creating more money. And that's the beauty and the power of it.
Yeah. So let's talk about this because we have to, because we're kind of a dude show. So money, that can be a major point of contention for a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people don't want to talk about it. I guess they hope that it'll somehow magically appear or grow or something. But they don't want to talk about that situation a lot of times. And that's the failure of a lot of marriages, I'm guessing. Talk about that. And how can we approach that to better our marriage and our relationships?
Yeah. Well, the thing that I've observed, because I had the opportunity to talk to a lot of different readers and listeners and students over the years just about this and their marriages with it, is that there are very few couples that get married where each of them have the exact same beliefs about money. And so the implication, like what that means for us, is that we're coming into this with differing beliefs. And so it should be no surprise that we're bumping heads on this, with our spouses, and that we're not on the same page. And so that's encouraging to some extent, but then also discouraging because it's a problem that we probably all have dealt with or are still dealing with.
I tend to think we've all dealt with it. It's a communication issue, right? You're talking about two people coming together. You love one another, but let's face it, most of the time you got two people coming together. You're coming from different walks of life. You grew up differently, different trains of thought. And,
and even if, you happen to have two parents who worked exactly the same jobs and made the same money, they're going to have completely different beliefs and mindsets about money. And so there's really no way for it to be the same. And so then you get married and it's like you bring these two mindsets and ideals together and you have to figure out how to make them work. And, and so there's no easy answers here, but like one of the things that has helped me a lot, I'll just say this to any guy who's listening, I've always been the numbers guy. I've been the one we got married. I kind of created the budget and said, all right, here, hun, this is what I think we should do. And I just kind of led the charge with that. And I know there's a lot of women who kind of play that role. But regardless, I was kind of the saver, the spreadsheet nerd type of guy. And my wife, Linda, was more of the the spender, more of the run around, spend all of her money type of thing, and trying to rein her in. So what's been really interesting for me is I felt like God revealed to me, kind of humbled me and showed me that, because I just thought I was right, because this is math. This is as black and white as it gets. But I felt like he showed me that I put her and you together for a purpose, and she has value to add to your financial equation. And if you're dismissing her as just being wrong and you just being right, you are missing something great that I have for you. And that was really eye-opening for me, because I just thought I was right. But what happened, as I thankfully kind of yielded to what God was showing me there, I started asking her questions and just being like, honey, what's important to you with money? Like, what are your goals? What are your aspirations? Like, how do you think we should be spending our money? How do you think we should be setting up our budget? And just asking her all those questions, inviting her in, even though I feel like she's going to mess my thing up. It was more important for us to be in unity and to do that. And, and it should be no surprise, but as I did that and kind of humbled myself and opened up to her way of thinking on this, she became more willing to hear my side of the equation as well. And so she began volunteering to control her spending a little bit better. And so the whole thing has just been so good for our marriage. But for me, the big aha was just that her desire to spend a lot more than mine actually was something I needed some of, because if it was just up to me, like we'd just be saving everything for retirement and not really living. And the truth is like, I don't know if I'm even going to live to that point. It's like, who knows? We don't know how long we're going to be on this earth. And she has helped me spend more of our money today, enjoy the moment today, because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And so it's just been a healthy balance for someone like me.
That's really good. And the way you said that, listen, money conversations are difficult. They just are. I think they're a huge challenge for most couples. But what I hear you saying and what I've experienced is that if you can have those conversations and just get it out there, you can really improve your quality of communications overall. Because listen, honestly, I can't think of a more challenging conversation to have than money.
No, I completely agree. And I think if you can talk to your spouse about money and work through that, then I don't think there's a lot of other things that you won't be able to talk about.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Yeah, for sure. Now, we've talked about that aspect of it. So what I'm interested in, as I was reading some of your information, is how you've gone to just not only save, but can I use the term tithe and give away and serve your community? Now, this is a big aspect for me. I love nonprofits. I love churches. I love being able to support my local community. And so, one of the things I think that being a good steward of your money does is it provides you that opportunity.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's been one of the more fun things for us, because I remember when my wife and I were dating, like we were as broke could be, and both had basically entry-level jobs and just very little money. But yet we had these dreams of being able to give away millions of dollars, and we just wanted to do that. And for some reason, we both had that kind of hardwired into us. We wanted to do it, but we're very unlikely candidates, and I think God just loves using unlikely candidates, and we're on our journey with all that. But that's been part of the motivation. Like I remember some point where we had, many tens and tens of thousands of dollars of credit card balances piled up between the two of us. And I remember like kind of going through and realizing how many hundreds of dollars of interest we were paying, not just like total payments, but interest.
Right.
We're paying to these credit card companies each month. And I just had this revelation that it's like, I don't care at all about these credit card companies. Like I'm not only am I paying for my past mistakes of things I bought 2 years ago that I don't even use anymore, but also I'm paying interest on top of that. And I just realized if I can just get out of this credit card debt, I can take just those interest payments and take that money and move it towards organizations that I care about, charities I care about, give to people around me who are in tough situations, like any of these things that I'm so much interested in doing, and it doesn't affect my standard of living at all. So I can take the money I'm paying to Chase and Visa, pay that off, and then immediately take that money and put it over here and start giving it. And I can still live exactly the same life I am. And once I had that aha, I was like, the race was on for us to get our credit cards paid off. And since that point, it's just been, yeah, full steam ahead.
Well, let's talk about that. That's a big thing for a lot of folks. I mean, credit cards are so easy to get your hands on, and so many of them like to do this zero interest thing, and not every. Now, listen, my house, we've taken full advantage. If you give me zero interest, man, I will take advantage of your money. But not everybody does that, right? So, what are some strategies that people can use to get themselves away from this credit card debt that they're find themselves in?
Yeah. So my wife and I created 3 rules for ourselves to help us, because when we first got married, we had all this credit card debt, and we just decided, all right, we're done with credit cards, because we just weren't in a spot where we could use them wisely, and so we just got rid of them. And then out of all that, about 7 years later, we opened another credit card, really for the rewards, and which we'll get to that in a second. But we created 3 rules for ourselves, basically to help us use credit cards responsibly. And so the first one was that we wouldn't use them for discretionary expenses. So I wouldn't take it to Lowe's. My wife wouldn't take the credit card to the mall. Wherever there's temptation to spend,
right?
Like we wouldn't use it for those things, but we would use it for the electric bill or something like that, because there's no temptation to overspend on the electric bill or, whatever, anything like that. Yep. And so just that differentiator just really helped me kind of have a wall to bump up against, or to not have a wall to bump up against. So that was helpful. Another thing that we decided we would do is that we would never carry a balance on it, because we had done that before. And so we decided if we ever carry a balance in any month, we're just going to get rid of the card and be done with it. And so that was just kind of our rule for ourselves to keep us from getting in trouble, because that's where the trouble comes from: carrying the balance, paying the interest charges. But if you never carry a balance, then you're great and you can use it to your advantage, because there are a lot of perks to using a credit card. And then our final rule was just that if we were going to use a credit card, we were going to use one that was going to work for us, because, like you mentioned, 0% between that and rewards programs, like there's a lot of benefits. And I think so many people tend to think a rewards program, one to the other, it's probably not that much different. They're probably similar. And the reality is it's like not even close, so a good rewards program versus a great rewards program might be 10 times better in terms of how much you get out of it. And I think so many people just don't realize that. And so we were just determined, if we're going to do this, we're going to find the best cards that we could possibly use, and maximize the rewards we're going to get from them. And in doing all of that, like I feel like whatever the last, I don't know, probably 10, 12 years at this point, we've been able to use credit cards wisely, not get in trouble, and get a lot of benefits from them.
Man, I don't know why. I normally don't ask this question. Like, who's got a good credit card program like that? I've never researched that. Honestly, we in our house, full disclosure, we and I don't know why we picked on this guy, just has outlasted everybody, I guess. My wife had a credit card that she got when she was in college.
Yeah.
We have maintained that credit card all these years, and that's where we accumulate our points. Mm-hmm. We may or may not be doing ourselves the best service on that. So I can't help but ask that you brought that up. Like, who's a good one?
Yeah. So a couple different things here. I mean, I'll point you to some links for anybody who's curious about all this stuff, but it depends on what your goals are. That's the short answer. Ooh. So depending on what your goals, like if your goal is cash back, or if your goal is rewards travel in the US versus, travel internationally, like those are going to oftentimes be different options of what might work best for you. So one of the things my wife and I did is, like we had a 5-year stretch where we earned enough points with our cards that we were using that we were able to travel 100 flights and 100 hotel nights for free within a 5-year period, all from rewards points.
Gotta dig that.
Yeah. So there's an article on our site that maybe we can put in the show notes or something that we can point people to, where it shows exactly how we did that, the cards we used. But the short answer is Out of that, the card that I've recommended the most is the Chase Sapphire Preferred card. And part of the reason is their points just go such a long way, and you can do so many different things with them. So you can do all the travel stuff, but you can cash them out for cash if you want. You can spend them on Amazon. You can use them to get like unique experiences, like flying in a fighter jet and stuff like that. Like there's just all kinds of interesting things you can do with them. You can book on their site different flights or hotel stuff, but you can also transfer to travel partners like Southwest or Hyatt or Ritz-Carlton or whatever. So you can do so many things with the points. And then just a lot of the perks that are built into the card just make it just one of the best cards that I've found. But again, it kind of depends.
Yeah.
So we have another link too. It's just seedtime.com/cc where I kind of break down different cards that I'm recommending based on what people need at the moment.
I'm just fascinated that you might be able to go top gun with your credit card. That's incredible.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I'm sure it's a lot of points. I didn't look into it that'd be once in a lifetime thing. Yeah.
Well, that's pretty interesting. So credit card aside, because I know a majority of the time they'll do nothing but get you in trouble.
Yes.
But that is something I think that it's a maturity factor and something you have to learn. What are some other great tips that you talk about with couples to help them maneuver? And maybe something you're talking about right now in these economic times. I'll be honest, last night I went to go grab a chocolate out of something that I bought at Costco, and I grabbed it, and I'm the one that bought it. And I went, wait a second here. The container, is this thing shrinking on me? And it is. It's called inflation. They're shrinking this stuff down and they're selling it for more. But what do you find yourself talking about a lot right now with couples and people that that can help them get through more difficult economic times?
Yeah. No, I mean, inflation it's a legit thing. And I mean, I think
it is.
Given the numbers we've had, I think people are finally starting to take it seriously because it's like, wow, I feel it now. This isn't just something they talk about on the news. This is like this. I actually feel what's happening because gas prices are so high, or you see your electric bill is 10 or 20% higher, or you are shopping for a car and you're like, what the heck happened to car prices? Any number of things, but it's just real and it's just what we're dealing with. And so, couple different things. We can take this a few different directions, but one of the most important things is that if you are not paying attention to where you're spending your money at this point, it's like you have to start doing this. Like I talk to so many people who I could ask them this question: how much did you spend last month on groceries? And like, I don't know. I think it's about $500. I think it's $700. And the truth is that we are terrible judges at how much it actually is. Like we can make all these guesses, but Mike, I was coaching this couple who things had gotten so tight for them. They were ready to basically sell their house to downsize because things are just too tight. And they're like, we got to find somewhere. But they were talking to us as kind of a last straw. And I asked them this question. I'm like, how much are you guys spending eating out? And they're like, about $200 a month. And I said, all right, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go use this app, Personal Capital or Mint.com, whatever. Go plug in all your information and look at the last 3 months and come back and tell me how much you spent eating out. They came back and they said, Bob, I don't know what happened. I don't know if somebody stole our card, but we spent $800 last month eating out. We thought it was $200. I'm like, and this is so common. People make these guesses and they're just so far off on them. So if you're not paying attention, the problem is that you can't see the problem spots. And so you don't know that that's something that can be fixed. Because like for them, it's like, all right, maybe we'll just not eat out $800 a month, and then we'll have a few hundred extra dollars to pay towards rent, and we don't have to move. Like, and it's like they're armed with that information so they can make that decision for themselves rather than not knowing and feeling like I'm forced out of my house. So it's just so powerful to actually know what's going on. So if you're not doing that, you got to do that. It's just like so essential right now.
And the reality is in that situation, my wife and I it was another conversation we were having. Because I mean, our kids are getting ready to roll out of the house, and we're like, why did we buy this big a house? Well, in the housing market, when we bought a house last summer, we were really struggling to downsize in the way we would, because those were the first things that went. And They were competitive bid situations. They were really inflating the price because it was a competitive situation.
Yep.
And so what I'm seeing right now as I'm talking with people is, a lot of people are like, well, I'm going to sell my house at the top of the market. Well, hey, genius. Now, wait a second here. If you sell it at the top of the market and you're telling me you want to rent, hello, have you checked out rental prices? Because they have gone up with the cost of a house because, they figured out they can, right? So, they're charging more for rent. If this is a tough thing to get out of, but to your point, in terms of looking at things, and this is again, another personal thing that I went through. And the first part of COVID, when that first hit, I guess, cause I had nothing better to do. I started going through our bills. Interestingly enough, I was like, why are we paying all this for cable? I bet I knocked, $50 off the cable bill. We got rid, we had a landline. The only person that called us on the landline were telemarketers. We got rid of the landline. Just really started going through the bills and taking it out. And I'm guessing you recommend this. My personal experience, I think once a year you need to sit down and you need to go through your cable bill, your, whatever the case may be, and go, are we overpaying? What does this look like? And maybe even call those people and negotiate.
Yep. That's great. Yeah. So I have talked about that a lot. And there's actually a website that I recommend a lot, because there's a lot of people listening and be like, well, that's great, but I don't want to call and negotiate. And it's like, I'm someone who would, and maybe you are, but a lot of people don't. But there's a website called Bill Cutters where they will do all the negotiating for you for free.
Wow.
And so it's such a cool service. Like, you basically go and you send them all your different bills, and then they call, negotiate on your behalf. And because they do this all the time and they know the offers, they know the words to say, the buttons to press, whatever, like, they can negotiate good deals oftentimes. And then their cut is they just split the difference with you, whatever they save. So if they save you $500 a year, then they'll get a $250 cut out of that. But at the end of the day, you're coming out ahead no matter what.
Listen, I think it's smart. Now, and I'm saying this, and you're causing me to think here. One of the things I haven't looked at in a long time is our mobile bill. Now, mobile companies, at least they used to be, they're notorious for changing plans all the time. And when they do that, they don't exactly knock on your door and go, oh, we've got a better plan for you over here. I mean, they just don't. They're in business to make money. And if they got you in a high price plan, then so be it.
Yeah. And the thing with mobile plans too, depending on what your needs are, if you're someone who travels across the country and needs, a network that's going to be solid out in the boonies, it's like you might need a bigger network, but a lot of the smaller networks might be a third of the price of like a big one like AT&T or Verizon. And many times they're piggybacking on the same towers. So a lot of times a smaller network can just be so much cheaper. Yeah.
It's amazing. There really is an endless supply of things to look at. The fact of the matter is that there are certain costs right now that they're rising, they're going up, and you have to deal with it, and you have to cut where you can cut. And but the good news is there's probably opportunities to cut out there, because you can't stop eating. And if you have a job, you're going to have to put fuel on your car. And that's just the bottom line.
Yeah. But the food thing is like a big one. Because that's probably most people's biggest area to reduce expense, and I personally don't cut coupons, but like, I know a lot of people who save a ton of money doing that.
Yeah.
And it, like, eating out, I think we all know this is really expensive. If you can eat at home, if you can find a way to do that, it's generally healthier and it's a whole lot cheaper. The grocery store you go to, this can be like 50, 100% more by one grocery store over another, like the same type of good. So there's just a lot of money to be saved there.
Well, listen, we've already talked about a ton of stuff, but I don't want to leave something undone here that's critically important. So is there something that you feel like, man, I really need to tell Mike's audience this is a real key to them being financially on track? And, so I don't want to miss anything.
Yeah, no, think the biggest thing that I think is really important to understand is, as a Christian, I just view money as a tool. And while the world wants to tell us that it's a goal, that, is this thing that we should just be chasing after, like, as a Christian, I don't think that's what it is. But I do think that we can use it as a tool, to impact other people's lives, impact eternity, impact the world around us. And I think when you see it as a tool, and stop and change it from the thing that you're just chasing after, and more of, for that purpose of just reaching a goal. Like, I don't know, for me, it just did a lot. It really changed and helped my thinking. So that would just be my encouragement. Like, start leaning into that, like identifying that money is a tool, and that we have an opportunity to use it well, use it wisely. And with it being a tool, it's something that we can get better at. You know what I mean? Like a wood carver, he has it in his hand, but he can learn how to use it better and better, and be more effective, and make a bigger impact,
Well, I mean, it is the Bible that uses the money is the root of all evil. Now,
Love of money.
love of money is the root of all evil. Yes, thank you. Um, and there is tremendous amount of truth in that. It will get you into trouble fast. And at the end of the day, it's God's money. He provides you the tools in order to earn it. And so it definitely needs to be used wisely. So,
Yeah.
Bob, as we begin to wrap up today, and again, we'll put this information in the show notes. How can people find you and find your information? Because there's just so much, so many valuable tools I think you probably bring to the table here with your knowledge.
Yeah. So, so our newest book is Simple Money, Rich Life. That's probably our best place to get started with it. And that's our book where we're helping people earn more money, help them reduce their expenses, and help them have more fun giving than they ever thought possible. Outside of that, our website is a valuable resource with all kinds of stuff. And that's just seedtime.com. It's like a seed you plant in the ground, time.com. And there's a whole bunch of different free resources on that site to kind of explore.
I was out on your website. It's a great website. There's a lot of valuable information in there. So just want to encourage anybody who listens to this podcast, go out and check out his website and find ways to save and build your wealth. That's how essentially you're going to build your legacy. So, Bob, thanks for being on the show today, and sure appreciated all the information that you provided for us.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Thanks a lot, and take care.